Hello and welcome to New Mexico Day Trips. I'm Shelley Carney.
And I'm Toby Eunice.
Today we're on our way to Santa Fe, the capital of New Mexico.
Yeah, it is.
And it's also where Toby was born and raised, so he knows his way around from back in the 60s.
It's changed a little bit
It's
since
changed
then.
since the 60s. Yeah, he's been back a few times.
Well, by the time we're done, everybody in the car will be bored with my commentary on Santa Fe.
And of course, we're taking my family to see Santa Fe because they're here for a visit. So you'll see them in the back. You'll see them in some of our video and photos today as well.
So the plan is just to go down to Santa Fe. We're going to go down to the plaza. The weather in Santa Fe is supposed to get sour in the afternoon. They're expecting thunder showers. So we're going to try and get our stuff in as quickly as possible. But for those of you that haven't visited Santa Fe, the plaza is one of the most interesting places, not only because of the shops and stores, but because we have the Palace of the Governors, the Native American, the Puebloans sell their jewelry and other wares down in the patio of the Palace of the Governors, plus there's great places to eat. So if you do get to Santa Fe, make sure you can spend a day at the plaza. Also on the plaza, or right off the plaza, is the New Mexico Museum of Art and the New Mexico Museum of History. Now, Santa Fe has a lot of different museums, but make sure you get to those two, especially if you're a fan of Georgia O'Keeffe, because there's some Georgia O'Keeffe paintings in the New Mexico Museum of Art.
All right, and look around and you can see a lot of tin work as well. And some of that tin work was done by people in Toby's family or extended family because Santa Fe was a very small town and everybody seemed to be related to everybody else. So it's grown since then a little bit, but it's still smaller than Albuquerque, which confuses some people because they think Albuquerque is the capital because it's the biggest city in New Mexico and it has the biggest airport, but it's actually Santa Fe.
Thankfully.
Yeah. What else?
That's it. We'll get to see it. We'll show off the plaza and right around the plaza, and then this afternoon we're planning to go find one of our favorite restaurants for a New Mexican meal.
And if you're interested in just watching the plaza someday, they do have a webcam that's on the internet that you can just watch people walking around the plaza. They do have festivals and craft fairs and all kinds of things going on down there in the plaza sometimes. I don't think there's going to be anything today.
I looked to see if there was anything on the schedule, and there wasn't.
So we'll let you know when we get there. We are in Santa Fe. We hit the parking lot and we're finally ready to go walk around the plaza.
And give our guests a tour of the plaza as well. So I'm going to keep the camera on for most of the walk around plaza. I'll be commenting while we're doing it, but if we get to anything interesting, we'll stop and record it for you, okay? So this is going to be the kind of tour you would get if you had family in town and they asked to go visit Santa Fe. All right?
And we're trying not to get run over. So
Yeah.
we better get going.
All right.
So I got to pay for parking at the pay here spot. There's a machine and you can use a credit card. So that's how you can pay for parking. On days when there's stuff going on, it's really crowded and hard to find parking. There are plenty of spots today, but still pretty full. So you want to make sure if you need to park, come early.
So this location here is called El Mercado, the market. And when I was growing up, it used to be mostly office spaces, but it's been converted and kind of renovated with all new shops, from jewelry to arts to fine arts to clothing to boots to gold, etc., etc. So it's one of the nicer places to go shopping.
It's a nice mural over there. This is La Fonda over here in the corner.
So La Fonda is one of the oldest hotels in Santa Fe, and it's one of the nicest. I think the people that come here regularly will stay at the La Fonda. And also the advantage, of course, is it's right downtown. Wrong way. That's the wrong way. So when I was growing up, that area over there is where Loretto High School used to be. And so we weren't far from the plaza at either St. Mike's or Loretto. And when I was growing up, this was a gas station. And over the years, it's become converted into, again, merchandising and things like that. They have these, looks like Guatemalan
It does.
here. Off in the distance, you hear a car alarm. Somebody got bumped. But again, the La Fonda has that very nice old Santa Fe styling. And
Something
up
on
on
the
top,
roof?
there's a restaurant. Actually, it's a bar up on top there that you can see. Where's the game? Oh.
Oops.
So we're still walking up. This is the end of the old Santa Fe Trail. And once we get up onto the plaza, what you're going to see more than anything else, aside from the plaza itself, are going to be stores of different kinds, mostly catering to the tourism trade, jewelry and clothing and hats and all the things that you'd expect to find. But it's got a Santa Fe touch to it. So as we get up here into the plaza area, when I was growing up, you could drive around the plaza. And now it's limited to, I think, two sides. The other two sides, the Palace of the Governor's side, you can't drive on anymore. And the Santa Fe National Bank. Hi, see, friendly people in Santa Fe.
Oh. YouTube. You
Where's my face coming out on?
Here we go.
So I was saying, back in
YouTube
the olden days, I guess that's how I should describe it. You could take this whole Santa Fe
Maybe.
Trail up here,
can't
and you can still drive that way on the plaza
Well, I
if you're
don't
in
know.
this
I'll
lane.
have to tell you. Take her out.
Would I get her
But then you
be-
have to turn because the
It's just a walk around
see
the
that would be
city.
the
I'll just check out the YouTube
northern
channel.
side of the plaza, and
Take trips all around New Mexico.
that would be east. The western side of the plaza,
You
you
always
can't drive on anymore. So,
Oh, wow. You're
like I said,
already in that pretty color.
when I was
so
younger,
yeah,
you
you've
could
done
drive
it all
around
yourself.
the plaza, and we used to do that on Friday nights. The plaza was the place that we went. Off in the distance is the cathedral, we call it. It's the Basilica de
Toby.
San Francisco de Assisi,
Hilarious.
after whom Santa Fe
Sorry.
was named. The full name of Santa Fe is Villa Real de San Francisco de Assisi de Santa Fe. That is the royal city of St. Francis of Assisi of the Holy Faith. So
I need a
this
pin
is,
for my vest.
you need a what?
A pin for my vest.
Oh, a Santa Fe pin?
You know, where is the camera that points at the plaza?
I don't know. I've never seen it. So let's walk straight across the plaza. We'll walk through the plaza and then decide which direction we're going to head from there, okay?
Okay. We gotta wait for the light.
And we'll keep an eye out for
It's
your
red now, so I guess we
Santa
can
Fe
cross,
pin.
right?
Oh,
Oh, it's
no,
no.
I think you have to press the button.
Where's
A
the button?
Is there a button?
I don't know. It's
That
just
tells us.
something.
Oh, it's because those guys can turn. I don't know.
anyway. That's the church. It's the cathedral, diocese cathedral. What's it called? Santa Fe Cathedral, right?
I've already told them it's the Basilica de San Francisco de Assisi. It's also the home of the Archdiocese of Santa Fe. Yeah, look at
Uh-oh.
this 32 Ford Coupe. Very nice. So like I said, when we were growing up, all of the
Now we
plaza
can
was
go.
open and you could drive around the plaza, and Friday nights we'd get in our cars and the plaza was one of the places we'd drive around and whistle at the girls.
And what is the meaning of the peppers here, like in several places?
I'm sorry. Oh, those are chili ristras. So one of the traditions in New Mexico is to take your green chili and allow it to dry on the string, and that's how you get your red chili. So traditionally you take your green chili, you'd put it on a string, you'd hang it out into the sun to dry, and that's called a chili ristra. And then you take that and you crush it up and you powder it up and you mix it with water and a little bit of oil, and that's what makes your red chili.
And this is just more now here for decoration, for that
For on the plaza, I'm sure that somebody eventually takes those down and takes them home, and because once they're dry, they'll stay dry and you can continue to use them.
Okay.
So, but yeah, for right now, they're just decoration.
Yeah, they're kind of.
So all the paths into the plaza lead to the center. There was an obelisk in the middle of the plaza that celebrated the reconquest of Santa Fe in 1693 by de Vargas. That's when my families arrived here, the Delgados and the Espinosas. But something happened to it. Maybe this thing will tell us what happened. Anyway, they're rebuilding the obelisk, redoing the obelisk. Oh, and I think the other thing they wanted to do was accommodate, because it was very Spanish, and they wanted to accommodate the Native American perspective into whatever they built there in the future. So every year the plaza hosts the Spanish Colonial Arts Market, which both my children, Jason
Which
and
we
Sean,
also have on our channel.
and we do have on our channel, yeah, participate in. And when that happens, the entire plaza is filled with Spanish colonial artists and their booths, and then they have Hispanic and Native American and Anglo musicians all playing here in the center. So we'll go out here. So there are 8 walkways into the plaza, and they all lead to where the obelisk, right to the center where the obelisk used to be.
Maybe go, I'm sorry, go down this.
And so again, back in the olden days when we were teenagers, we'd find a place to park and we would walk around the plaza and enjoy it in that way. It hasn't changed much since. I always remember having the brick and the flagstone elements. I guess there are certain vendors that are allowed down here. Looks like jewelers and pottery makers, and I don't know what kind of permit you're required. So it's highly policed. So, and as you can see, let me see, that would be the western side of the plaza is blocked off. And during Fiesta and all the other times of the year, you'll see lots of people walking there. And then the northern side of the plaza is also blocked off. And what we're looking at right now is the Palace of the Governors, which was the original colonial seat for New Mexico and for Santa Fe. Santa Fe is not the oldest capital in the United States. Tallahassee is, but it's the second oldest capital in the United States. And I'm smelling smoke. So we have a lot of fires in the area.
Smells like chili dough.
I can smell some of the smoke that you're now. So I'm going to take you, so traditionally under the patio awning of the Palace of the Governors, the older, the more, what do you call them, the longest living members of the Spanish Colonial Art Society during the Spanish Colonial Art show in July. It's the last weekend in July. We'll have places under here, but all the other times, what they've allowed the Native American Puebloans to do is to host the sale of their jewelry and pottery. And I can remember, again, this is one of those things that I can remember being here since I was a little boy. So when I was a little boy, my brothers and I would make money by going onto the plaza with our shoe shining kits, and we would shine the boots of the Texas guests that would be in town. And then also come 3 o'clock, we would go up the street to the Santa Fe, New Mexico newspaper office,
Tomash?
and we would buy
See all the
newspapers. Each of us would buy 50
cottonwoods.
newspapers, and we'd come back
Trees
on the
always do
plaza,
this every year.
and we'd sell them not only to the tourists, but we sell them to the native Santa Feans
It looks
who would
like
be
cotton.
driving around
That's
the
why
plaza
they
in
call
cars, and they would stop long enough to buy the newspaper for us. So we made 10 cents a paper, I think, and 50 papers would give us $5, and back then, $5 for a 10-year-old was a lot of money. So we used to charge the Texans $2 to shine their boots, and they were always happy to have us do it. We got pretty good at that whole boot shining thing. So a beautiful
About a
selection
month.
of Native American work,
3
both
weeks
jewelry,
to a month.
pottery. There's a couple of artists that we passed by. So if you're looking for Native American art, jewelry, sandstone paintings, make sure you come down, visit them in the patio of the Palace of the Governors. So the Palace of the Governors is open. It's also a museum, and that's one of the, you can see that chain's put across there, and so people have to turn back up until Palace Avenue. When I was growing up, little kid, my grandparents' house was about 3 blocks up in that direction, on the corner of Palace and what is now Paseo del Peralta, and we were catty corner to the what was then St. Vincent's Hospital. It's now the Drury Hotel, and I went to school at St. Francis Elementary School, which was up the street from where we lived. And I used to live during the school year. I would live with my grandma and my grandpa, so I could just walk to school. In the snow, which was always up to our thighs. No, I'm just kidding. So Palace Avenue continues down that direction. That used to be wide open all the way to Sandoval Street, but now there's, as you can see, a hotel. And that's the direction you can find something called Burro Alley, which is an old landmark. It's now got restaurants and shops in it. But there were people, when I was growing up, there were people that lived in Burro Alley. Oh, look, we have so all these shops here are all shops that cater to the tourism business here in Santa Fe, including a Lucchese boots shop. So if you want to buy an expensive pair of boots that will last you your entire life if you take care of them. So what do you want to do with the fam?
They're just looking at stuff.
Okay. I'm going to go down this direction, get a shot of the New Mexico Museum of Art and the New Mexico Museum of History. Want to go?
Yeah, I'll take
Okay.
pictures because I take pictures.
We should have given them walkie-talkies.
We won't be that far.
No. And they
They've
could-
been in much more crowded situations and kept track
Yeah,
of their
in
families.
Europe.
So. And Africa,
Oh, true. Yeah.
South Africa, I can't even imagine. And I shouldn't
Well,
be
he
talking
was-
about them on camera.
Good point.
Oh, that one girl you said hi to, and she was in the store, and she's like, "Wait, what? Where am I going to be appearing? What's this about?" So I gave her a card, and she's like, "You're going to show me?" And I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be on camera. And I'm like, I was like, well, he's
She's-
gone now. And then she's like, well, make me look good. And I said, well, you already look
Yeah,
good.
she
You're
looked
wearing
pretty
that
good.
pretty color.
What was once she stepped out on the street, she's in what is called public view,
Yeah.
and so if all I do is pass by. Now, if I were to stop and say that woman we just passed is kind of goofy, so that old building there was also once a church, but now it's the New Mexico Museum of Art, and it's a beautiful museum, and it has a broad variety of art, including some of the pieces that were done by Georgia O'Keeffe. So if you want to get a sense of kind of the New Mexico perspective on art, this is where you come. That's the place I would go if somebody said, can we go to an art museum? There are lots of art galleries along here. This is Lincoln Avenue, and up there used to be the Sears store, and at the end is you'll see that rock building way at the end. That's the Federal building. That's where all the federal offices were, and they're on Federal Circle now. So
What else did you want to take pictures
I wanted to go to the museum in New Mexico, or the History Museum, New Mexico History Museum. And this street has always been the diagonal parking. I always remember it being diagonal parking. Now all their parking meters are digital, so you can use your credit card to park. You don't have to have cash or coin with you to do that. Now down at the corner, Lincoln Street intersects with Marcy Street.
Cut one.
Oh, you got a cotton. So this is cottonwood season. They're releasing all its
Seeds.
cotton seeds, which is why we have so many thousands of cottonwoods. I think what I'm going to do is just give you a quick look around, and maybe we can find your Santa Fe. Okay, so I'm not sure how much will be good because the lights are very toned down in here. So
You got
it's going
two.
to make this camera jumpy. Actually, what I'm going to do, okay.
When you get that, you will always forever prosper as a people, as a nation. So you must never let that sheep die. Because with that sheep, you will always prosper in life. You will provide every.
All right, so the lighting in here is very low. I think what I'm going to do is I'll do a quick walkthrough and not talk. But before I do that, I'm going to turn the camera off and I'm going to change it back to non-rock steady because rock steady doesn't like low light. So just give me a second here. So it's not going to be as steady, but I should be able to shoot in this light. So this first section that we just went through is about the Puebloans, the ancient Puebloans that were here before anybody arrived. And then it moves into the northern outpost period, which is when the Spanish started arriving in their search for wealth, mostly gold, what they believed to be here, because they had seen all the gold in Mexico that the Aztecs and the Mayans had left behind. So they assumed that some of that gold was coming from north of Mexico. They were disappointed to find out that there wasn't as much gold here in New Mexico as there was in Mexico. So along with the Spanish came what we now call priests. They were called friars then. from various segments of Catholicism, and so their job was to transform the native tribes from whatever their native religions were into Catholics. So there was, of course, a lot of consternation caused as a result. But you've seen in the past where we have visited some of the Native American ancient pueblos, and each one we visited, there is a church as well. So this covers a period when New Mexico was actually part of Old Mexico, a colony of Old Mexico, and at that time, Old Mexico was ruled by Spain. Therefore, New Mexico was ruled by Spain as well. So you can see here the Pueblo Revolt took place in 1680, and in 1692, I think it was, Don Diego de Vargas and his band of Spanish conquistadores returned, and they made it what's referred to as the peaceful reconquest of Santa Fe. Supposedly there was no bloodshed, as they came to some kind of agreement with the tribes, the various tribes that were involved in the Pueblo Revolt. And most of the tribes, most of the Pueblos were involved in the revolt. It was headed up, it was organized by a single man. His name was Pope, and he organized the revolt in all the Pueblos. So this room contains some tapestries and some images. So they're just cartoons on the wall. These are cartoons of the period. And then the storytelling tapestries. So I guess what I could recommend is that if you're uncertain of the role that New Mexico plays in history, history that goes back to the prehistoric period when it was only populated by the ancient Puebloans, so it goes back to the pre-1000s, right? Because there were Puebloans in this area prior to 1000. And then through the Spanish colonial period, and then finally through the period in which we became a territory of the United States, and eventually in 1912, a state of the United States. So here, all the way up here is Mexico, and what you should be able to recognize is the boundary that was made through Texas by the Rio Grande River. And you can see that goes all the way up into Colorado, but you can see that shape of Texas is still there all the way to the coast. So New Mexico, in some cases, as you can see, called Nuevo Mexico and Nuevo León, is in this area here. Like right about there. And then it was actually one large area, and eventually they divided it into two, and the western portion of it became Arizona. Here's what I was talking about. So you can see here, this is all New Mexico, and it was a territory. And eventually they split it up on this line right here. This area right here, which has Arizona, Utah, Colorado, and New Mexico, is referred to as the Four Corners. Arizona divides there, and let's see, Nevada comes down here, and New Mexico is now all the way, so New Mexico is this line here. all the way to the Rio Grande, and then that's where Texas starts. So one of the advantages of having the priests travel, the friars and the frays travel along with the Spanish conquistadores, is they were very good at documentation. They recorded everything in writing. And so there was a complete history of New Mexico from the period that the Spanish left Mexico and came north to New Mexico, because they brought the priests with them, and the priests recorded everything. So this is the cowboy period, and the cowboy period is mostly focused on the Lincoln County Wars. You'll see some of the characters, including, let me see if I can find Billy the Kid here. The Lincoln County Wars were probably the most historically notable period. They were cattle wars, but the two primaries in the Lincoln County Wars were businessmen also. And they both had businesses up here on the plaza in Santa Fe. And so they sold sundries, you know, they were like the department store of their time. There's Billy the Kid. This is the image you see of him most often. And there's the cattlemen and the cowboys up there. So this is the cowboy period from about 1837 through 1878. This is when the population started growing by Anglos from the east and northeast, and they brought their own culture with them. And so now New Mexico consisted of three very distinct cultures merging together in the Native American population, the Spanish population, and the Anglo population. And to some extent, Santa Fe is still very much like that, the three cultures. Oh, we saw one of these at the Heritage Museum in Las Cruces. It's a cattle branding book. So somebody was responsible for recording all the brands that were made by the various cattle companies to protect their properties. So this was the period in the 1900s where Santa Fe started attracting various artists, and it started with the art community was built around some of the rich Anglo folks that moved here, including people like Mabel Dodge Luhan, Georgia O'Keeffe, people like that who brought art with them, but also funded the art community. And so there was a style, I don't want to call it New Mexico style, I'd call it more Southwestern style, that was developed as a result. And then, of course, we started attracting the scientists as Bandelier and all these locations that were anthropologically significant or paleologically significant or geologically significant. We attracted a lot of different sciences here. And then that culminated, of course, in 1942 when it was decided that the location of Los Alamos, which is about 20 miles north and west of Santa Fe, it was decided that Los Alamos would be home to the development of the atomic bomb. And that was developed from 1942 through 1945. You remember our trip to Trinity Site. So we've been to the three locations that we have videos about. So one is Trinity Site, where the atomic bomb was exploded for the first time, and that was July of 1945. And we've also been to the Bradley Museum of Science in Los Alamos, along with several locations in Los Alamos that track the history of the development of the atomic bomb. And we've also been to the Nuclear Museum in Albuquerque. So those are kind of what we call the atomic triumvirate of visits, if you've been to those 3 locations and you've studied all the material that was there, you'd have a really good idea of the development of the bomb here in New Mexico. But New Mexico has a long history of science, not only in nuclear weaponry, nuclear productivity, but we also have great geology, we have great paleontology, we have great anthropology, and so we attract a lot of science here in our schools, New Mexico State University and Las Cruces, and University of New Mexico in Albuquerque, as well as several others, the Eastern New Mexico University in Socorro, New Mexico Tech in Socorro. All are have big science campuses, and that's kind of New Mexico's story when it comes to science. So I'm going to recommend that if you want to learn more, not only about Santa Fe, but about New Mexico in general and its evolution from, being populated by the ancient Puebloans to the addition of the Spanish as they came up through Mexico, to the addition of the cowboys and the Anglos that came in the 1900s, and then the art community. And you probably know that Santa Fe is still a premier art community, and we're very proud of the art that's produced in Santa Fe. So, if you get a chance, make sure you visit the museum. So we can go downstairs as well.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where the auditorium is, the mezzanine is, and this covers New Mexico from 1912 when we became a state to the present. Now there is an elevator on the other side of this wall, so if you don't do steps, you can take the elevator down. Oh, they're big steps. No, I mean they're wide steps. So again, I'm going to apologize because this footage is a little bit shakier than we give you most of the time, but I have to do that so that we can capture all of this in light, and I'm going to make sure it's going to come out. So you may end up with just a audio of all of this. This covers the period where the railroad was developing through New Mexico, and really the railroad was being developed for 2 reasons. One, because of cattle, and people, of course, wanting to move out here, but the 2 primary reasons were cattle and mining, which is what drove the development of the railroad through New Mexico. Santa Fe still has a nice, very nice train station. So we may have to do this all in photos, as Shelley is taking photos of all this that are probably coming out a lot better than this video. New Mexico has a lot of history and business too, so as you can see, this patio right here is called the Harvey Patio, and it was funded by several people, including Catherine Harvey and Byron Harvey III. They're the Harveys of the Harvey Hotel clan.
But I don't know.
And what was amazing is all of the people who had personalities that were developed even further as a result of New Mexico, especially women. There's a lot of history in New Mexico made by women, especially during the 1900s, the late 1800s and the 1900s. And it was because they seemed to find themselves here. They would end up riding and roping and running cattle on their own ranches and things like that. So I've always felt like New Mexico was a good place for a woman to find her own way. So that continues the story from 1912 to the present, but I know it's just made of images on the wall, so we probably won't go down there. So those are some of the people that made contributions to make sure the museum came to its fruition. Look in the auditorium. Oh, it's locked. So we're out downstairs in the middle level. You want to show them our new?
Got a new pin.
We got our new pin.
And a T-shirt.
And a T-shirt.
At
And
the
I'm
gift
almost
shop.
battered. So I went into the gift shop with the camera on, but the gentleman that was working behind the counter said there was no photography. And there is a lot of art, both Native American and New Mexican, as well as Anglo art. I don't know how else to describe it in there, so I can understand that. But they did have a display of Jason's work, and I asked permission to take a photograph of that work, just so I could share it with Jason. We're waiting for our company to come down from the New Mexico Museum. We're going to head across to the Palace of the Governors. We'll get you some shots through there, and then we'll do an outro, and we're going to go to lunch after that. Okay? How are you doing?
Yeah, it's great. This is part of Santa Fe that I've never explored before. I've always go to the plaza, walk around the plaza, but I haven't been into the Palace of the Governors or this museum, so it was really nice to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, if all you do is come down here and go to the Palace of the Governors, the museum, the New Mexico History Museum, and the New Mexico Art Museum, it's a good day,
Yeah.
and you'll get a lot of information as a result. Okay. All right, guys, I'll turn you back on when we get into the Palace of the Governors. Talk to me.
So we're headed over from the museum over to the Palace of the Governors. Got a wagon to look at. Go this way or that way.
I kind of remember them being bigger. Is that really, maybe that's like a mini
little
Conestoga,
chuck
the
wagon.
compact version of a Conestoga?
I think it's just a little chuck wagon for feeding people. They just take the lunch out on it.
I think you're making that up. All right, so in
Could
case you
be.
guys have never seen a
that
summer
before.
afternoon in Santa Fe, those clouds, that's what a summer afternoon is like. And right about 2 o'clock, they all produce these wonderfully loud thunderstorms.
Okay, so you have the camera.
I have both cameras here. So one year I was doing a documentary called The Threads of Devotion, and the members of the Sociedad de Vargas were all family members of
Cottonwood
the
fluff.
families that
Seeds,
arrived when de Vargas
they
arrived
do
in
that for about a month.
1692, and they reenact the Reconquest, and they all organize here in this little patio area. And I got to shoot that. All right, so we're going into the Palace of the Governors. The Palace of the Governors well, Santa Fe is not the oldest capital city. The Palace of the Governor is the oldest seat of government. And of course, they don't use it for that anymore, but they do use it as an art museum. And most of this art, well, a lot of this art dates back to the arrival of the Spanish. But these are still 3.5, 4 foot thick adobe walls. So the Ilfields, this is the Ilfield family. And the reason they're notable in Santa Fe is they had one of the shops, the dry sundries, what do they call them? Dry goods.
Mercantile.
Mercantile. That's their shop, and that was one of the first shops on the plaza. The Ilfields had them. And The ill fields are part of the Lebanese culture here in Santa Fe.
I don't know why they make bugs into jewelry. Ew, icky. Who'd want to wear a bug?
Look at the contents of one of these mercantile stores. It's kind of the Walmart of its day, huh? So I'll show you a couple of these paintings because they're 18th century. And
So
they're painted
apparently
in the
this was where the
1700s.
governors lived?
Well, this is not only where they lived, but this is where they ruled from. So this was not only their domicile, it was also the center of the government.
Starting what year?
As in the first arrival, probably around the 1640s, 1650s. But you'll see a lot in this early Spanish art has religious themes.
So is this a stage?
No, that's probably someplace you could sit down. So if somebody was doing a presentation in here, the audience could sit there and listen, or maybe if they have flamenco dancers in someday, that would make a good stage. So 1610, 1598. So the first governors date back to 1598 before
And only up till 1910 then.
Spanish rule. Now you can see, so here's 1691 to 1697. 1691 was when de Vargas came in and became the governor of this, what was then called, it wasn't called, it was called Nuevo Mexico, the state of New Mexico. It was still owned by
Well, it wasn't a
Spain.
state, it was a territory, right?
Territory. Well, it wasn't even
Wasn't
that.
even a
It was
territory.
because it was owned by the Spanish through Mexico, right? So in here we have some of the traditional Spanish arts, and again, there's you've got to remember that a lot of the traditional Spanish arts that arrived came here as a result, or developed as a result of the fact that they needed icons, iconography for the churches. And so, for example, there's all these retablos, but this is my daughter's paints retablos. But part of the retablo art, a good portion of the retablo art was for the purposes of decorating the churches. The same with Jason's tin craft. The tin that they made the iconography from came from large 5-gallon, I don't know if they're gallon, tin cans, square, those rectangular tin cans. They'd, after they used them, they'd save them, clean them out, and they would use them to make the tin work. But these are the retablos, and they're all, they call them retablos because they're painted on wood, and they're painted with natural pigments. But again, it's all religious iconography. And if you come in the last weekend of July, as I said earlier, there's a big Spanish colonial art show on the plaza. Here's my favorite saint. My favorite saint is San Miguel, because my middle name is Michael. So this is another section of the museum, and this is where the print shop was. So they have a few full, I mean, I guess it's probably not working, but it could be.
Laughing Horse Press. Walter Willard Johnson, better known as Spud, made his home in Taos and Santa Fe in the early 1920s until his death in 1968. A poet, writer, publisher, and humorist, Johnson started out at the University of California at Berkeley, where he and two friends introduced Laughing Horse, a campus journal featuring literary giants of the 1920s and 30s. In 23, after the magazine was suppressed for printing a D.H. Lawrence review with what the university claimed was obscene language, Johnson took over sole editorship, moved the magazine's operation to Taos, and continued publishing for more than a decade. When he acquired his own treadle-operated press in 1927, he printed Laughing Horse, as well as a series of pamphlets and a small newspaper called The Horsefly. A major literary force, Bud Johnson worked for The New Yorker, published a volume of his own poetry with the Cooperative Writers Editions, wrote for the Santa Fe New Mexican, spearheaded local writing groups, edited the Taos Valley News, and later contributed a Sunday column to that paper. How?
Busy gentleman.
Yeah, very cool.
Sure.
It's kind of similar, but for the educated people.
Drink a lot of water while you're here.
Yeah, I'm trying.
If you have headaches, that's a symptom of not
Yeah,
drinking enough
yeah.
water. Great, enjoy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I don't know. We gotta. I don't know where they went.
It's like hard to keep full. I think Toby's inside.
No, he came out. Yeah. Yeah. I was in there with him, and then he came out, and then he disappeared. Maybe he went to the restroom. Maybe he went. Oh, there's Tomasz. I'm going to the restroom.
Okay. My grandmother used to have lilacs in her backyard. Whatever house she had, she always had lilacs in the backyard, and you could smell them throughout the neighborhood. Thank you. So this guy, Isidro Sanchez, Shelley's calling me. Hello. In that area, the Palace of the Governors. I thought you came with these guys. No, she went to the bathroom. The small door. Yeah. The second small door. Shelley, I remember. I followed them thinking you were with them.
Everybody disappeared when I went to the restroom. So I thought you guys were in the other place. Look.
So it covers this area back to 10,000 BCE when it was just populated by the ancient Puebloans. Oh, I started to tell you guys a story. So there was a famous thief back in the, from around the 1690s through 1700s, early 1700s. And his name was Isidro Sanchez. And when I was in high school at St. Mike's, Acoma, it's a model of Acoma, we had a young man who was in the same year that I was. And his name was Izzy Sanchez. And it wasn't until we were seniors in high school that one of the Christian brothers, as we were studying New Mexico history, brought up Isidro Sanchez. And look, there's some of the old archaeological digs. That's very cool. And so, as we were studying New Mexico history, the name of Isidro, the Spanish, this famous Spanish thief, came up. And at some point, Izzy, sitting in the back of the room, yelled, "That was my grandpa." Now, actually, it was his great, 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 great grandpa, but it was his grandpa. So we had a whole new level of respect for Izzy.
For who?
Izzy.
Who's Izzy?
Izzy, my friend in high school, who was related to Isidro Sanchez, a famous Mexican thief. So I wasn't the only one that had famous relatives in my... So as far as I can remember, the palace was used up through 1913, and then they started the process of restoring it little by little.
We did get to see the museum, history museum, and the Palace of the Governors, where the governors lived and ruled from, as Toby says, since the 1600s. So that's pretty cool.
We're going back out now to the plaza, which you've already seen. It sounds like they have a Native American dancers out there, so I might get a little bit of video of that and just play it to you guys at the end of the video. But we've had a good day. If you're coming to Santa Fe, as I said, make sure you get down to the plaza, go to some of the shops, find a place to go eat, go to the New Mexico Museum of History, and right across the street from us is the New Mexico Museum of Art. And you should stop by. If you're coming to Santa Fe, make sure you take in both those museums. Okay? Thanks for watching, guys. We'll talk to you later.